Today, I want to talk to you about awakening, because when we awaken, we humans have the ability to access the all-one consciousness. That's what I call it. And that is what is happening so very rapidly and indeed in ever larger waves right now. Because in this process, we all go through different stages together, and we embark on a journey where we experience a variety of inner and outer processes. And we all share our experiences through various stages and phases, both internally and externally. And yet there are such exciting topics that I want to share with you today, such as the contact with your spirit guide, or an entity that will, in a gentle manner and wonderfully, guide you through the insights of awakening, providing support and encouragement. And this journey, generally this journey of awakening, what we are not, yes, and it also resembles a liberation from all the limitations that we believe to be true. In this episode, you will learn about the benefits of awakening and what you can do to support this process. And I will share with you some beautiful experiences I had this weekend in connection with the awakening. So stay until the end. I am delighted you're joining this episode of your Lebe Glücklich podcast. Linda Giese, I have been a spiritual mentor for over 20 years. I am the author of Consciousness Next Level and the founder of the Being Potential Method. Being potentials are your strengths that have been given to you for this life, and these naturally support you in your awakening and help you, like a compass, to navigate well through your life, make the right decisions, and fully come into your power. If you want to know more about it, I have included a link in the show notes for this podcast episode. Through that, you can join our next free live show. And yes, just check it out and feel free to sign up, completely non-binding and free of charge. It's definitely a super exciting show. Yes, let's get started. So our planet itself, or life on our planet, in the end, it is super diverse. So our planet is multidimensional. This means that there are different levels of reality occurring simultaneously on our planet. From the unawakened state, we feel and experience a very specific nature of reality in our daily lives and interactions. Yes, we indeed see, feel, and truly experience what we have been accustomed to so far. This is that one reality that convinces us it must be the absolute one, because we all experience it more or less the same way. However, it is different when you awaken. Then you gain insights into further levels of reality and states of being, which ultimately allow us to see an overarching picture of the connections of life with the all-one consciousness. 2001, this difference often gives us the impression, the difference between the awakened and unawakened state, and thus also the perception of different realities. This often gives us the impression that the unawakened way of seeing, being, feeling, and perceiving is in any way or in any manner whatsoever inferior to the awakened one, as if it were less valuable. Yes, the awakened, meaning the higher way of feeling, being, and perceiving, is often viewed as desirable, especially in the spiritual realm. However, it is not entirely fair, and I really want to emphasize this urgently, because the lower and the higher these two states, they exist simultaneously and even cooperate with each other. And even if you consider yourself among the awakened, or if you often doubt yourself because you might still be going through emotional crises, I just want to say that exactly what is active here is indeed what is definitely cooperating with each other. So we also experience it within ourselves. Yes, indeed, these lower and higher states. Let's take an example. If you have a really bad day, like a really off day where you might feel sad, maybe down, and then you go through a low vibration phase. And in order to perceive these parts of your energy body and transform them effectively, you sometimes need from time to time go through a lower phase, a low vibration phase. The circumstances that bring this about don't really matter. Ultimately, you are simply brought into contact with what still needs to be transformed within you. Yes, why does this definitely need to be transformed or altered? Because the frequency of this inner part is not in harmony with where you absolutely want to travel next. Yes. It is therefore worth taking a closer look and considering it completely normal that when you are in your awakening phase and you have consciously or unconsciously set the intention to reach a higher level, a next stage, a next level in your life or in your consciousness, there will always be phases of clarification that you have to go through where you must, can, and should face your own lower vibrations. Yes, because otherwise it just doesn't work. You simply can't ascend or awaken or whatever you want to call it with these parts of yourself that are not in harmony. It's quite logical, I think. So we don't actually need to point fingers at others because we have these issues within ourselves as well. And it's completely okay, no matter how far you can simply process such topics within yourself. It's part of it. Awakening is like a journey to an unknown continent. Yes, indeed, but a continent that has long existed. Yes, on your journey, you will explore more parts of this continent, except that this continent is now your consciousness. A consciousness long existed, vast, and completely unknown to you. There are many areas that you are not yet familiar with. 2001. And this journey to these parts of your consciousness can only be made in this vehicle. It's called awakening. This expansion of consciousness, this journey into these other levels of reality of your consciousness, it indeed truly goes significantly beyond awakening. In the past, people used to think that some awakening isn't possible. It's either all or nothing. 2001, being a little pregnant doesn't work. It's either all or nothing. I see it differently. I firmly believe that one can also awaken in stages and thus consciously participate in a journey of an ever-expanding state of consciousness and also an awakened state. Access your higher states of consciousness. You can support it in many different ways. So, for example, if someone is interested and says, wow, sometimes something is active in me, how can I support it? There are many different ways. Ultimately, it's about, in essence, detaching ourselves a little bit from our focus, our attention, and our identification with this world, which we have so far perceived as the only reality in our lives. And we can do that by enhancing our senses and our channels of perception. I also have a really exciting story about this later. What can you do? Spend time in nature. Yes, work in nature. So these are just things whenever possible, go out into nature. There you get so many opportunities to let go. And through the sacred geometry of nature, through the frequencies of nature, and simply through the living aspects of nature, all the information present there resonates with you, your energy bodies, and your consciousness. And that clearly helps you to promote and support your awakening. Yes, but also certain hobbies, for example, where you dedicate yourself with great joy and lose track of time and forget the world around you when you immerse yourself in them. So joy is something that is really indeed an enormous turbo boost in the awakening. Yes, truly. Even though awakening is a challenging state or a challenging process, joy is something that promotes this state of awakening. So this high vibration of joy and forgetting everything around you and forgetting time, simply being yourself, being in your complete creativity, for example, these are very clear ways to definitely support you. So have fun, yes. But ultimately also the meditative state, if you can indeed achieve it, and not just during meditation itself, but perhaps also in your everyday life. In fact, to adopt a more meditative state in your daily life. For complete beginners, this might still be a big challenge. But for those who are already a bit practiced in repeatedly entering the meditative state, it is immensely important because it definitely connects you with the information of the high vibrations around you. Yes, like this. All of this assists you in any way to detach from the dramas or the so-called normal world's perceived importance in your life. Yes, and with that, you will indeed allow more open states of consciousness, which appear to vibrate higher, 2001 or higher. And yes, you ultimately also receive information from other various sources of being, including additional sources of information, than the different information sources or types of sources of being that you have chosen or allowed with your usual focus on reality so far that you have encountered in your experience. When the wonderful gift of spiritual awakening is indeed meant for you, 2001, yes, then it actually happens to allow you access to the realms of your soul. And with that, tasks are in every conceivable way ultimately tied to you. Yes, so awakening naturally includes a high level of responsibility, which means you must be accountable for your actions and decisions. And with that responsibility, you are also given special tasks that require your unique skills. This isn't for everyone right now. We really need to make that clear right now. And not everyone finds it desirable. And we should calmly and rationally accept that. I emphasize this so urgently and strongly because I keep noticing that there is a complex of superiority, a sense of superiority, and lecturing within the spiritual and holistic scene. Yes, indeed. Sometimes we make ourselves believe that we are something special or more advanced than others, or just because we connect with an energy, we think we are superior or better than those who do not. I really advise against it, yes, because each of us definitely has the experiences that are meant for us in 2001. Each of us chooses our own focus every day, whether consciously or unconsciously, that's beside the point. And with that, each individual determines their experiences and their perceived reality in their own unique way. There is nothing better or worse. Yes, when you awaken, you are not better than the unawakened. You simply have a different perception and different tasks. And as I already mentioned, the awakened and the unawakened also cooperate with their own inner moods. We also don't need to try to prove the experiences of the awakened to those who are still skeptical, or to lecture them in any manner or fashion, in any conceivable way, shape, or form. They simply won't be receptive to these words. And for some, these words don't even exist, and that's quite fascinating. I am currently working with a man who is a police officer, and he also enjoys being a police officer. And he told me recently, he said, wow, Lena, this is just really totally crazy. We had talked about whether we are perceived by humans or non-humans who are in a different vibration, in a different frequency than we are in this case. And he said, this is totally crazy. He said, I love my colleagues, and some of my colleagues are also really good friends. He is someone who values social connections, a valuable person who takes them seriously. He is attentive, open, and interested in others, a fascinating and wonderful person. He is quite accustomed to being treated in this particular manner by those who are very close to him, as it has been a common occurrence throughout his life. And he mentioned that whenever he talks about it, for instance, he often brings up various examples and details explaining what he usually means. I have definitely, absolutely done it. And whether it has to do with spirituality or the training here from you, Linda, whenever I actually talk about it, it's as if they don't truly hear my words and they are not so ignorant that they wouldn't ask questions. They just don't indeed understand it. And I also asked him, yes, do you just hint at it a little bit or do you really say it clearly? And he said, well, I say it very, very clearly. And I know him. He has an exceptionally good way of telling stories. So when he starts telling a story, it's incredibly interesting. So the way he communicates, I noticed right from the beginning that it's very interesting, very exciting, and he can tell stories very, very well. And the whole group has already noticed that too. So you really can't not listen to him. So, and it's so exhilarating that he says they don't really hear these words. And I mean this indeed as a comforting relief for you as well. You don't have to persuade everyone of something if they are not ready yet or willing to accept it at this moment in time. And I believe that it is so important because we need to stop judging. And because we don't always have to wait for everyone, the one for whom the time is right must simply move forward at that moment. And for the others who stay behind, no matter how important they are to you, they will be taken care of just as you were taken care of. People have also left you because they were simply further along at a certain point than you were at that time. And that's why you should really, really, really focus calmly on your path, because you definitely have enough to do there. It is experiential. So, from experience, awakening is indeed quite a bit of a challenge, definitely. And in this phase, which can also come in waves, we really need to keep the energy within ourselves. During the awakening process, and naturally also afterwards, it is completely normal and expected to come into contact with various entities, beings, and energies. A very exciting and thrilling section I want to talk to you about is when you come into contact with entities or with energies, or suddenly nature speaks to you, or animals, or you suddenly have the ability to communicate with the wisdom of your soul, or something similar. That means you start to communicate effectively, but not with other people, rather with subtle and various sources of information. Let us proceed in this particular way. And that is something different from what we might have perceived at the very beginning of our spiritual, personal, and emotional journey. I would like to touch on that again. I don't know about you, but for me and also those I was in contact with at the time, it felt more like we perceived a profound connection as humans to these entities. This connection was genuinely felt and had a lasting impression. Yes. And the contact with something higher or more subtle was such that we as humans were there. And then there was the subtle or higher developed being, which was an extraordinary experience that left a lasting impression on us. However, in the present moment, from the state of being fully awakened and conscious, the nature of the contact and interaction with these entities has become somewhat different and more nuanced. But this little bit is of immense importance, and I'll try to describe it to you. It's actually quite easy to understand, I think. Whether you are speaking with your spirit guide and additionally another entity or energy and the higher wisdom of your soul, or with nature, you do this because you legitimize yourself to connect with something outside of you. And with this permission, you switch to the frequency range of the one you are connecting with, and thus become the one you are connecting with. You take on the vibration. Let's use the example of a spirit guide. In the very moment when you deeply connect with your spiritual guide in an awakened state, you begin to align with that higher spiritual vibration that is so significantly different. Yes, you really feel that everything is indeed one on a completely different level. Absolutely. But it's really about this legitimacy. And as far as I know, this can indeed only come from this truly awakened state, because before that, you simply don't dare to do it, really. Or you feel in a way they call it somewhat arrogant and definitely somehow like that in a sense. That is something you must not do. Yes, getting the information is allowed, but you must not become that entity. And that is indeed different in the state of awakening. In this state, you also get a completely different and unique experience of love. Yes, love is indeed usually something more emotionally charged for us, and often, yes, we connect. We also want to get some of the love, such a good feeling, or to be loved back. Yes, couples falling asleep, cuddled up together, constant affirmations, and so on. Definitely. So, this intriguing game of love as we perceive it as humans and as we experience it. From the awakened state, it is more apparent to you that love is not so emotional. She might even be relatively emotionless. Of course, you can also feel great love, and that can overflow to me as well. That is almost too much for your container, your emotional container. But fundamentally, this love that is constantly present is relatively significant, emotionless, and is rather extremely, exceedingly clear. It is simply a harmonious connection between entities, yes, or between everything and everyone. And love is what connects everything together. It's truly fascinating that within our human experience, but also indeed in the universe, there are absolutely indeed places or situations of disharmony. And that is simply a distortion of love. So the love that at that point is not yet healed and ultimately still distorted. And we don't necessarily experience this perfect harmony and harmonious accord in our daily lives truly and completely. But the precious gift of spiritual awakening, and this is truly so incredibly exciting, indeed enables us to use our remarkable abilities to elevate ourselves to higher, more enlightened states, and thereby also change our feelings and, yes, our feelings and our being, so to speak, our state of being, indeed. And with that, we help ourselves to see or adopt a higher perspective, or to see from a higher perspective, in order to ultimately and more effectively. And because then, now I come back to this, we become our spirit guide. This immediately brings everything full circle. Why am I telling you this now? And because you not only take on a different perspective, but you become that different perspective in a certain sense. And through this, you begin to receive information from the higher state of being or from the higher perspective. And as a result, you can even heal other people or situations. By adopting their state, the state of the higher perspective, and simply by being in this state of being, you automatically trigger healing. Yes, and ultimately it makes perfect sense. Or this is, for example, also indeed a task that comes to you when you have awakened. And you don't really need to make a big effort, right? I keep hearing this in the spiritual scene, like, oh, I want to help others. I want to bring healing to this world. This desire is already the first big mistake, because the question is, are you really capable of legitimizing yourself to assume higher states in such a way that you become the higher state? Yes, still have reservations, think you're too small for it, that you shouldn't do it, or that you're not good enough or worthy enough. So, are you able to take on these high states? And are you able to then also take on the states of other people or situations to ultimately bring this high vibration into them through your state of being? It might be a bit complicated right now, but some of you will definitely understand it well. And that is an incredibly beautiful experience, because you can then stay in an elevated state for many minutes, or maybe just for a moment, or even for a few hours, and automatically trigger healing from a higher perspective without wanting anything. Yes, the ego isn't involved, it just happens. And if it doesn't happen, then it just doesn't happen. Yes, but when you assume these higher states, you also send these higher states into, for example, matter. Yes, it's very simple. Yes, even though the actual act of awakening is often indeed described by most people as difficult or challenging, I just want to say that awakening is ultimately something truly beautiful and wonderful as well. In fact, it is indeed. Yes, simply it is because there is so much to transform in this process of awakening. And physically, of course, there are challenging situations here and there. That's why it is often described as difficult. But ultimately, the process is not over yet, indeed, because the result of awakening is indeed a truly great and wonderful feeling of profound peace and lightness. And it wasn't that long ago. This event happened just recently. I had a discussion with a man about a particular topic of awakening because he very clearly said that awakening is terrible and emphasized that it will never be pleasant. And he had also explained why. And I understood him well. I also understand exactly what he means. But we don't need to stop there. The adventurous journey continues, and we continue to explore. And when you keep moving forward and get used to this clear understanding of love and this new feeling of love, as well as the heightened perspective on things and the elevated states of being, you will ultimately be met with a feeling of peace, serenity, acceptance, lightness, immense, overwhelming joy, and a constant rediscovery of insights and experiences and wonder. It's truly, truly beautiful. And it is really indeed absolutely worth going through the experience of darkness or the experiences of transformation, yes, so that you can also truly enter into a calm and self-determined way of life. Yes, because even if the way of living looks a bit different from the struggle for existence you were used to before, and even when you are more in the flow of life, it is still a conscious guidance, a self-determined guidance that you take on, simply because you are guiding your mind, yes, and guiding your emotions and guiding your spirit. So it's already a very exciting topic. Yes, and what's also really, truly amazing indeed. And ultimately, you also have a kind of invisible cloak at your disposal once you are in this awakened state, which you can consciously use here and there. And we had a totally freaky experience with that over the weekend. I was with my amazing team. We had a very important team meeting, took an exciting team building trip, and we were just, yeah, we were just super cool and comfortable with each other. We were at the beach on a sunny day, and the energy was simply absolutely unbelievably magical. And we also had this particularly energy rich weekend with the full moon, and somehow we felt it and we did some beautiful energetic magic. Beforehand, we enjoyed a healing session, we had a cacao ceremony, and somehow we were all beautifully attuned to good energies. And I noticed on the beach, as I was lying on my blanket, we were all lying. We had nice speakers with us playing music, and everyone was in their own energy. And I already noticed I was experiencing real awakening surges, that this world around me became so surreal, and I really had to check in between if I was still alive because I somehow felt like I wasn't in my body anymore. And I also had incredibly intense realizations during this time. But what I actually wanted to tell you now is, and I also thought so, that I was the only one. And then I really tried from a certain point to focus on the conversations of others in order to somehow really land back in my body. Well, anyway, one participant wanted to, and a team member wanted to go to the cafe a little bit further up the beach and also wanted to get something to drink and use the restroom furthermore. And on the way there, we had to walk a distance along the beach. Then she suddenly said, "Wow, I feel like I'm on a treadmill and I'm walking against it. I keep walking and walking, but the goal keeps moving further away." And I knew exactly what she meant in 2001 because I felt something similar shortly before in my process as well. So we really had an energy on this island. It was truly fascinating. And I knew she was going through a similar process. And that's exactly what happened. So we really managed to get to this cafe with a few people, and we sat outside in a corner at a nice little table in the shade, and then we ordered something to drink. And then we noticed that the employee with us seemed utterly disengaged and inattentive, almost as if she was in her own world, completely checked out. She sat there and we didn't disturb her process. We observed her, we were with her, but she was really completely on a journey. Yes, and it wasn't responsive anymore. It seemed like it had suddenly stopped working. And then we ordered something to drink. Yes. And at some point, we decided to use our invisibility cloak to shield ourselves and envelop ourselves as a group to maintain this calm. It was actually a very funny idea, which was indeed meant seriously and was also applied seriously. But then, after a brief moment of clarity, we forgot once more and we wondered in confusion about what had happened. So we really had to be there for a very, very long time because she was, so to speak, out of her body for several hours and having her experiences. And we kept wanting to order something, but we were trying to get the attention of the staff. No one ever saw us. We called, we waved, and it was really only possible if one of our group went out and specifically went to someone, to the waiter and to the bar, and then ordered something, that we were even heard. Yes, and then it just hit us many hours later. Wow, that was the invisible cloak. Maybe we should take it back now. And what was really exciting and quite surprising was that this particular employee, despite her best efforts, still can't exactly explain what happened during that unusual and unexpected event. She only knew that she had already recognized us, meaning she had indeed already heard our voices, but she was in an absolute parallel world and didn't want to come back from there, actually. So she clearly said that it really, indeed, actually definitely bothered her when we tried to contact her every now and then to see if she was okay or something. But she absolutely and completely did not want to return to our current present reality because it was so incredibly and unbelievably beautiful to be in this higher, elevated state of being, to embrace it fully, understand all the information thoroughly, and navigate and find her way carefully in this other world. So, in the context of our current reality, she was sitting in one place the entire time. In her reality, she was traveling in a beautiful world and was richly gifted with incredibly deep insights and information. Yes, and she has been different ever since in her own unique way. Yes, I can't say exactly what yet, but I can understand what is happening with her now and that she still has a lot to process and will continue to do so. She has now immersed herself in an expanded area of her consciousness and is connected with beautiful energies and perhaps also with spirit guides, and she will occasionally align with their frequencies. This is truly very, very precious and very, very valuable. So you can use this invisible cloak here and there in various situations, whenever and wherever you might feel you need to move around in a world that seems where you feel you don't quite fit in or where the frequencies around you disturb you. And then you don't always have to step out of your body, because what I said about the cloak, we were just normally present in this world of the cafe, outside on the terrace, in the beautiful sunshine, in the lovely half shade. And yes, we were still indeed in our own world, even though we were in the middle of the normal world. And these insights this weekend, this awakening, which was also relevant for many of us this weekend, also as a team meeting, though not for everyone. That was also quite interesting. Not everyone was ready for it, and it wasn't the right time for everyone. Yes, and it was neither better nor worse, but for some, it was the right time. And it was so incredibly exciting to also witness how another woman who works with us on the team, for the first time, I saw who she really is. Yes, and she was simply able to assume her own state of being in a way I had never experienced before. And this state of being, it is so incredibly humorous, it is so funny, it is so amusing, I can't even begin to describe it. she is so quick-witted. She has such intense thought processes that it's a high level of intelligence, these thought processes. And at the same time, she's also hilariously funny in a positive way. And she also said, wow, she said, I don't really know what actually happened to me this weekend. I couldn't stop being that way at all, I said to her. It was such a gift that we got to experience you like that because we didn't know you that way either. We can always see you being so neat and yes, you do everything well and correctly. But this liveliness we didn't know. Stay like this. Everything else seems you. Yes, that's why your life might have been a bit exhausting before. And she says, wow, that was really exhausting looking back now. And then she says, well, if I am the way I am in the normal world, that might not always be actually appropriate. Here I had the framework, here were the energies, they were crazy, and here I could be myself. She is grateful a framework was created where she could be who she is. And then I shared my detailed and comprehensive insights from the weekend with her, and then said to her in a calm, thoughtful, and reflective manner that it is not important how others want you to be or perceive you, but if you have been given the unique and special ability to be who you truly are, that is indeed an incredible and wonderful gift. Sorry, that too is awakening. Yes, and most people would like to be who they really are, but they just can't reach that. They can't manage to overcome it. And this state of being is also a part of this awakening. And it is beautiful. And just try not to cover up this access again, but keep it open. And so my incredibly awakening moment was also super exciting and momentous. And I'll just quickly share this experience with you now. In this state, which I told you about earlier, which by the way occurred multiple times this weekend and always at this beach, it became so clear to me that all that we call the past is ultimately no longer there, but is only kept alive through our memory, our recollections, and the narratives we construct. And it might not be new to us now, but what was so new for me was to feel it. And it was so incredibly intense to feel that I could barely stand it in my body, because it actually means that I die every second. Because the person I was a second ago, a minute ago, or at the beginning of this podcast no longer exists in any form. And that can be understood on an intellectual level. It makes you reflect deeply on the nature of existence and the constant change we undergo. But how it was for me was really this constant experience of death. Tree dying, tree dying, tree dying, and at the same time, the spark of living. And so it is really shown to me, this 2022 dying life. It's like a nuclear reactor, that constantly pulses something new. I don't know how else to describe it. You constantly pulse yourself into life, but leave behind something of yourself that dies. And in this context, and that's why I'm telling you this as well, indeed. Now let's consider this statement from the employee who said, "But when I am the way I am, it's so hard in the normal world." It is so unimportant because, in fact, please be as you are, because the moment you have been, you are, it is actually already gone again, indeed. And the only thing we really hold on to are these memories, and we weave something out of them. But I can assure you that the more and more your circle of people you choose to surround yourself with is filled with individuals who are awakened or those who are in the process of awakening, the better it will be for you in the long run. Because the less the topic of memory will be an anchor that guides and shapes you. You can learn from the past, yes, and it shapes you, but you are always fresh. You are always new. And you are indeed brand new every moment, Usend. And it is truly, absolutely, truly a shame not to absolutely celebrate this state. And how could you celebrate it better than by shining in your full potential and being in your full being? Yes, and I would also like to invite you to do so. Once here, you can gain insights from this podcast episode, but also, for example, about your being potentials. Being potentials are your support for your awakening, your being. Potentials are the lever for your own individual awakening and for a truly beautiful awakening, one that is loving and valuable and will enrich your life so much. And it's already happening. Yes, for some, they can feel it. Others are already in the middle of it. And for others, it might still be coming. Yes, and the being potentials are the opportunity to truly find out who are you really? What are your strengths? What is your spirit? Yes, to fully reconnect with it and become that. Yes, it is exciting. And the other day, I worked with someone who has experienced an awakening. He booked a coaching session with me, and he said, also a science potential coaching. And he said, it is absolutely phenomenal what the being potentials, that's a completely different turbo. Even for those who are on the path and have made strides, because it goes so deep and connects you with this height in a way you haven't experienced before. Yes, it's super exciting. Feel free to join our free live show. Let's also connect on Instagram. Yes, I always share focused tips for you there. And I am incredibly excited to see how this podcast episode resonated with you today. So please make sure to comment, write to me about how you feel about it. What insights have you gained? What experiences have you perhaps already had? By the way, you have been commenting so wonderfully on these podcast episodes lately, and I really enjoy reading these comments and your reports. And I also keep reading how good it is for you to learn from each other about how you are doing. This really strengthens the community and thus also the field of awakening. Because awakening is a consciousness that exists just as consciousness itself does. Yes, okay. From the bottom of my heart, the very, very best for you. With love, your sister in spirit, your Linda.